Good evening. Welcome to the January 22nd, 2025 meeting of the Board of Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light Commissioners. I call to order the meeting at 6:31 p.m. This meeting is being recorded. I did have a request. I wanted to make a request for a few updates. And just go through them. So last meeting, we had customers attend. They had some issues with the paving on their street. I think it was Chestnut and around that area.
Yeah, Whittemore. And so,
I saw that in the board book, there's a update on the.
right. So what happened the customer the first customer that complained at the meeting, they had just done the service in front of the house and they always put temporary patch until they're done. So he was dissatisfied with that, but we were able to go back and put some sand over it for the meeting was on a Thursday. So Friday, we were able to make some additional temporary repairs, and we also coned off the area more for him. And then on Monday, it was repaved with the permanent paving.
Okay.
So typically, we don't permanently pave every night. We use patch until we finish the street, and then we go back and do the permanent paving. So it was completed by the Friday. The customer that was having the runoff issue, we went back when we finished, cleaned up his driveway one more time, but he's going to continue to have that problem, not because of us, because the way that the water directs off that street still funnels into his driveway. So we're long gone, but his issue will still continue.
Okay.
And so Joe Conway knows about it also. So.
Okay.
So those two cousins. So I haven't heard from them since then. We were able to, again, Jimmy talked to them on that Friday and then again on Monday when we went back to do the permanent paving.
Great. You mentioned that we met with Mass EEA and DOER on January 10th.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
you included that presentation in the board
Correct.
book.
Yeah.
Were there any key takeaways?
I mean, I think the meeting went very well. They were very pleased with, we had a long discussion. I mean, the issues, the local control, that was a discussion that we had as well. I mean, I thought overall the meeting was very well received. It was set up by Beacon Climate. And they had asked us to make a presentation on the energy park, and like I said, we included a lot of the data. They had a lot of questions about acceptance of the battery, because I think they're hearing in different parts of the state that towns might be resistant to batteries. So how was it accepted here, and how, so that was one thing. And one of the things I explained to them was the fact that because we already had one battery, it's making this larger, more modular battery. They're more accepting of it because they know that, we're learning, they're learning, but it hasn't been an issue. And there was one other major issue that they were.
Was it around workforce development or?
They were interested in that. They liked that. There was another issue that it'll come to me on.
Yeah, I don't remember what significant issue that.
Yeah, it was the acceptance of the battery, and there was one other thing. It'll come to me. I think it was definitely around, they were interested in the cost, they were interested in the financial model. So we had 3 meetings actually, all within 10 days. So Elton brought a group from National Grid. And then 3 days later, we had
Nice, you didn't tell me about it.
It happened on a fly. It was like the week Christmas, I think I reached out to Dave and I'm like, hey, do you mind hosting us on January 8th?
Yeah.
Nicola.
Oh.
So our CEO of New England Electric was here along with myself, Andy Gumbus from Revenue
Regulatory.
Ozan Bascam from Control Center. Couple of people that work with on NWAs one from Mass, one from New York.
Okay,
Jeff Merritt, head of operations. It was like 7 of us.
wow,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah, it was very well.
National Grid has something to.
Yeah,
learn from.
they're praising, yeah.
The COO from Scotland, so we bonded over Scotland. 'Cause I was telling her, I had just been there over the summer and how much I loved Scotland, so. Yeah, it was great. They had great
Did you
questions.
understand what she was saying?
Oh, yeah, that group, their biggest interest was around the business model, like,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
and so, and then, the regulatory group was more interested in like the barriers and things like that. And then we also, the third meeting we had was with Donald, Kate, and, Jason Lewis, our three representatives. We had them in a week ago, mostly covering the same topics and had, discussions. So there was interest in different places. So I think that, overall, we pretty much covered the same material in each meeting. And we had great discussions with all three of them. I did hear, the feedback from the state group was very positive because I was approached by the head of Energy New England, John Zimmerangis, about 3 days later. He's like, I don't know what you guys did, but they're talking about your meeting back at the State House. So that was positive,
I think the other was the permitting and the community support.
Yeah.
They did hear some feedback from people, that small minority of people, that small group that was opposed. But we did talk about how the community was very, very supportive of
That's what it was.
Project as well.
Yeah, that was the other, because it was like that 10 or 12 people that were complaining about the tree issue. But we stressed that it had the support of the town council, planning, FinCom, environmental sustainability. Every group kind of chimed in support of the project. And there was a very small minority of people. So, and we explained a little bit about what we did to try to appease that group, in terms of minimizing the trees we cut, leaving a buffer, replacing the trees. And we cut down 129 trees. We committed to plant 200. We've already planted 330. So, and and that was finishing the Maple Way project. We reforested Maple Way. The trees that we put around the rest of the town, both the public and the private trees. And we haven't even finished, Ballaster yet. So Ballaster's been cleaned up. We started the work at the park. Obviously, we ran into winter. So in the spring, there'll be more trees planted at Ballaster as well. So we'll finish that project in the spring.
Right, but when you're making that comparison with others, so don't include the trees that you would have been planting anyway, right? So don't say 330, because you would have done 100 of those anyways, right?
Well, we're not under any obligation. We've done.
I know, I'm
hundreds.
just saying, like if someone says you cut down 125 trees and you say, well, we committed to put 200 up, you put 200 up. Don't add the other ones to it.
Wow.
I mean,
Last year we planted 330 trees, so I think that's a good story. So, and that includes we're not obligated to do the private trees, but I think if you look back at our history, since we've started these programs, we've done over 500 trees, so.
But I mean, your point is the battery park.
right, yeah.
Like what are the trees
just looking
that
at the
were,
back.
just looking at the battery park, how many trees did we plant in addition to what we?
That we
cut
wouldn't
down?
have otherwise. Right?
Or committed to, yeah. Yeah, I could see them being interested in the financial model. I don't know if that would work. Anyways, we can talk about that offline. Great, and so the next, was there anything else?
There were some slides at the end, at the very end, like bill comparisons, and I was just curious.
Those weren't included in there. This was more for the clean heat and the other.
Oh, okay.
Those were,
It's not,
that wasn't included in those.
got it. I was hoping we could get
Although-
to at some point. I wasn't sure what they were connected.
Right,
Yeah.
but I did, the slides that were in there were around the heat pumps and the number of.
Yeah, I did see that. The cumulative, right,
Yeah.
including the moratorium and,
Yeah.
all these, which is actually really, I'm not sure we've had this so clearly presented. So
Right.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, as some of these topics have come up, we've tried to like analyze and show the data. Both Liv and Joe have done a great job at trying to gather the data. So this slide, actually, the slide you're on right now around the heat pumps, that was a form that was presented to, not that one,
Looking for what page it is, so we can show
yeah.
everybody else, but I don't have a page on it. It has three tables, two
Right there.
2023 heat pumps,
Yeah.
2024 heat pumps.
So that slide was actually a slide that came from the state in a meeting that E&E and MWEC had with the state over the clean heat standard. And they were saying that that data, the data varies by town, and we acknowledge that. But also, like, for example, in their data, Wakefield had zeros. And so we were saying, so part of our conversation that day was the fact that the reporting mechanism for the map was very, like, they wanted that data in the map, the municipal action plan that we do every year. They wanted that data in the map, but it wasn't clear to us that that's the data they wanted. So we had an excellent conversation with Martha Grover about the fact that I think it's incumbent on the state to make sure that they're telling us what information they want so we can provide it, you know, and she acknowledged that. And that came out in the meeting that she had with Ron and with Zimmer over the fact that the munis aren't reporting the information in the same way. I'm like, well, part of the reason for that is you're not telling us that that's what you want. So if you tell us that's what you want, you'll get it that way. And within 2 days of the meeting that MWEC and E&E had, we had all that data. So, you know, and that data is probably, if not the best in the state, among the best in the state of where we stand in terms of the heat pumps. So
What is the WX per thousand? I was just trying to figure out. Is that
weatherization,
weatherization per
1,000 households.
Yeah.
household? Thank you.
yeah. So I think going forward, when we file a map next year, we'll be able to give it to them in a format that they're looking for. And Martha Grover did say that she was her staff was gonna work on improving the clarifying the expectations so that we can provide the information that they're looking for.
Just out of curiosity, did they request that meeting with us? Did they, the EEA Mass DOER?
No, that was Beacon Climate set that up.
Oh, okay.
So they asked us to do the meeting because again, the original part of the meeting was around the energy part, but we used that opportunity to talk about some of the other issues
Okay,
and how they all tie together too.
right.
One of the things we talked about at a macro level was the fact that in 2017 and 18, coming out of the early 2000s when we had this economic downturn but Wakefield fared very well. Our housing market really didn't sink like the rest of the state because we're on 128 and 93 and trains and subways and all that. So our housing market pretty much hold value. So we knew that coming into the next decade, you know, housing was going to be a thing here. And so in the mid 2000s, when we were having this gas crisis that we couldn't let our gas peak go up, that's when the board at the time voted for that moratorium to curb that gas peak. Because at that point, we were bringing in portable LNG during the winter to cover the peak. So it was getting very costly. So one of the things we decided to do was curb that peak, knowing that all these apartments were on the horizon. And so prevent those apartments from going gas heat and just continuing to drive that cost up. So that was and I use that in conjunction with the idea of local control, that the fact that we knew the town, knew what was happening, had all these drawings on the table, you know, all these ideas of apartment complexes all over the place, and we didn't want them to go gas heat. So that's how, you know, and, you know, that was the story of how we, you know, brought those things together. So. And so they were impressed by this, you know, the fact that, and that story is different in Holyoke and it's different in Westfield and it's different in other places. And that's why they were really interested in that, you know, the fact that the model works because the commissioners and staff in Wakefield know Wakefield, you know, and so we talked a lot about that and they, you know, and how effective the moratorium is on all these apartments to be. And again, then we kind of furthered that discussion into the fact that the state still has a goal to add, what is it, over 1 million new housing units over the next 10 years or whatever it is. So one of the things we talked about is like, there's got to be action, not just it's like, there should be a moratorium on letting any of those apartments hook up to gas. You know, it should be mandatory that all those units become electric heating and cooling. Excuse me. So that, you know, that was one of the things that we, you know, that'll ensure that it happens. So,
Were you,
Through building code too.
yeah,
right, you're not implying that we should have a statewide ban or moratorium, are you?
I think we should on multifamilies. On more, I think.
I'm surprised.
A lot of communities are doing that.
Yeah.
They're putting that in place. And,
Right, but I meant a statewide coming down from.
well, the stretch code is
Goes,
a way into it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah,
it's not
partially there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Not the
Yeah. But I'm just saying,
line on the sand,
The
but
numbers in the specialized code, right?
But again, so we're pushing all these like incentive costs, but you can have a bigger effect if you're gonna build 2 million units, don't let any of them be on gas heat.
right,
So,
so I'm just surprised, so.
and so we share that idea, you know, that concept with them. I think, you know, it's hard, but again, you're not attacking the residents. You're pushing back on developers a little bit, but at the end of the day, this is on prospective properties being built. It's not on existing,
Right,
and you can have a major impact. You
Right.
know, so.
And long-term operational costs go down.
I'm not saying I'm not in agreement, I'm just saying that I'm surprised that you said that because we've been talking about local control and each community making their own decisions. So having a statewide moratorium on new.
Yeah, but that's not making the utility do anything. That's like, so for example, one of the reasons that we don't necessarily have like a new construction incentive program is because we already have the regulations. We don't need to incent.
Right.
If you want to build in Wakefield, you have to follow these rules. We have the specialized energy code, we have the moratorium on gas. We don't need to incent anything else. If you want to build here, these are the rules of the game, you know, and and we shared that with them, you know. And so we don't need to incent developers to do that. They have to do it if they want to build here.
Right. Okay, thank you for that update. Shall we move on to the meme update? So, meme had a general manager meeting on January 15th. And there were a couple items on the agenda around participant comments or discussion of the MLB caucus. Communication with DOER and DEP, and then there was another item.
With the budget.
That I thought we might,
There was the regulatory update.
the regulatory, update, yeah, could you,
So, I mean, the summary that was basically, I sent out this today, kind of summarizes the main thrust of the overview of that meeting. And there's been a lot of correspondence that have been going around over the past couple of days too, so. And the global, Dave, Liv might have got bumped out because she's trying to get back in.
Sorry.
was there, discussion about channels of communication or?
A little bit, but it was mostly around the whole idea of the need to make sure that everybody's aware of these specific issues in terms of their threats to local control and the MLP business model. One of the issues that was discussed in the Bob Rodefeld discussion was the whole thing that we've been trying to work very closely with Jeff Roy and the TUE, especially around the large building reporting requirements. And last month when I gave the update, we thought that we were in pretty good shape in terms of it not being required of us, but that we could work with them in some other way to make sure we got the data. And the the DOER basically ignored that and published it as a mandate. So where we are, and that was right. So after our meeting, there was some discussion, then the Jeff Roy actually sent a letter over to the DOR that was completely, nobody even replied to his letter. As the chair of the TUE, they didn't even reply to his letter. They just published the regulation. So there was a lot of discussion about that and the fact that the administration right now seems to be attacking the public power local control model in multiple areas. So there was a lot of discussion about that in the regulatory update with Bob. What are we going to do about that? How are we going to? So that was what led to the budget discussion around, we're going to free up some of the money to prepare for a legal battle if necessary to challenge the rate, the chapter 164 and the value of the local control model where those decisions are made by statute at the local level. So, and what's happened from a political perspective is that the large building reporting requirement is like the camel sticking their nose under the tent. It's not the biggest issue. There's bigger issues, but that's the one that opens the door. And if they think that they can regulate in that way, we're pushing back on that. And it's not that we have a major concern, and that's not the fight that we necessarily want to fight. But by the same token, it's the one that would allow them to continue to do that. So there's going to be pushback from the muni world at all levels. Where we stand on that and what was decided at that meeting was that we're going to make one more attempt to talk to the administration, to have a meeting with Rebecca Tepper and say that in all these cases we're behind the global goals, but we will fight for local control forever. And that's the place that we need to draw the line in the sand. So if we'll want to work with you, we'll feed you all the data you want about how successful all these different towns have been in doing what's needed and what's wanted. But we won't give up local control and unless we lose a court case. So that's what's coming. And because right now there is court cases that have supported the model of local control. So that was a lot of the discussion in that regulatory discussion.
Okay. And this meeting with Rebecca Tepper, is it going to be on the clean heat standard, the large building efficiency reporting, or the decarbonization clearinghouse, or all of the above?
It'll be all, it was the concept of local control and regulating the communities versus working with the communities. And we're really stressing that the point is that the communities are all in different, like, we're not the same model as the IOUs in multiple ways. One of which is the fact that the IOUs can diversify their costs over a customer base of over 1 million people. And you have high income and low income, and you have suburban and rural, and you have Wakefield is Wakefield. We have our customer base. Holyoke is Holyoke. They have their customer base, and they're all different. And they've been run differently for 100 years. And the people in each of those communities know their communities. And so the issue is that we haven't been operating under the IOU model. We can't diversify cost across 100 different, places. We have to, the cost flows straight back to the Wakefield ratepayers and the Holyoke ratepayers. And they're all differently socioeconomically, physical assets, non-carbon emitting mix right now. Like they're all different right now. So that's the big issue.
Okay.
So the people, so we've asked Ron DeCurzio, the president of MWEC, and John Zimmerangus, the CEO of Energy New England, to have that meeting with a letter that looks like all the ones that I've included in these packages, it's basically stating the same things. The fact that, this is kind of a line in the sand for the muni world, that we need to defend this turf. We're not saying we're not going to work with you. We're just saying that the regulation, it can't go down this way. And that's, so they're trying to share that information one more time before we end up having to take other action.
Other thoughts on the matter?
It's interesting because there are other states and IOUs that are fighting battles with their regulatory bodies. Eversource just filed a cease and desist letter with Connecticut on some of the rulings that the commissioner in Connecticut had approved. So,
Really?
wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, if you look at what people are doing, the muni model as a whole is incredibly, I mean, the goals are obviously keep the lights on, be as efficient as humanly possible at the lowest possible cost. That's the mission. And so, what are we doing? And by the way, we signed up, we put ourselves in the whole 20, 30, 40, 50 thing to make sure the roadmap was clear. And I think 33 out of 40 are already at the 2030 goal, so that's, the IOUs aren't even halfway there, or whatever is it 28% now, I think, non-carbon emitting, something like that. So I think, the state saying that everybody's going to be treated the same it hasn't been that way for 100 years. It's like each town has owned their own muni and made their own decisions. There's like, if we talk about the clean heat standard, this board could vote tomorrow to implement the mass save rebate levels if you wanted to. We don't need to be mandated to do it. Locally, Wakefield could decide to do that tomorrow. And, and that cost goes right on the bill, and that's what it is. But the way that they want to do it is that money wouldn't stay in Wakefield. If we don't, non-compliance payments go back into some pot that almost more than likely not would never come back to Wakefield. And, again, those are the criteria that, we're basing the fight on, so.
Okay, so just a couple more things, because we are gonna have a discussion on clean heat standard in the decarbonization clearinghouse. That's a separate agenda item. I wanted to check to see if Joe was available for our next meeting.
Yeah, I
Instead of
mean,
me.
I'm not sure if I've shared with you what he's gonna share. I mean, we can do that, but I don't think he's gonna want to be scolded for communication. I think there's so much information here. I mean, he definitely said he could be available, but I don't know the value of making him come. You're kind of up to speed on everything, so.
Well, I'll just ask. We had, back in November, we had discussed communication channels and being informed, before our legislators are informed in case they come to us for information or advice. And I think what we decided at that time was that
To invite him,
to
yeah.
invite him, to have him explain.
One of the things I've included in here is so he had the same request from Hingham, so he actually replied to Hingham in writing.
Yeah.
And he'll probably, if we requested, he could reply to us, but so that letter, I believe, is in here. So in terms of what he replied to Hingham, and I think his position will be the same.
Oh, okay. I don't think that this letter addresses what I had raised as concerns. So now I understand what this letter is. But I'm not sure that this addresses what I had raised.
Okay.
Which was not necessarily that the decisions need to be voted on by individual commission votes or even approved, but just how can commission boards be aware of well in advance and informed of what's going on at MEAM. And I have another follow-up question, but yes, I think that this doesn't quite get at that concern.
I think what he'll say is that sometimes we have the ability and other times it's going very fast. As a matter of fact, like the correspondence, the additional correspondence I've included have all happened since I put the board book out. You know, this correspondence and the other one that I've attached are actually stuff that's happened like this week. But some of this stuff is going very rapidly.
Can I ask if there's at this time remote participation in MEAM meetings? But what about even just doing a MEAM meeting on Zoom? Okay.
But
'Cause I
there
thought
was
they
a
heard there
memo
was a
that Jane
Or something.
sent out. It's in the last week, or, oh, no, sorry. A couple days before the January 15th meeting.
For about a proxy vote, right?
Or, no, it was a Zoom coordinates for that meeting and then also, for the March meeting. She said that they were going to start doing the Zoom.
She did. I wasn't aware of that.
So I got two invitations,
I wasn't,
Zoom links.
we didn't set anything up on Zoom. I'm not sure if that was. what
Was
you-
that the MLC pilot thing that's happening tomorrow night? Is that
No, it was I could
'cause I'm
look
on
it
that-
up.
I believe I'm on that as a
Did you
commissioner.
get
I'm on that distribution list as well, and I haven't seen anything as far as meme from Jane Parento sending out Zoom type stuff.
I'll
This one is it does have a
Yeah.
Google Meet, on March 12th. There is a Google Meet link.
Yep, and then there was one on January 15th was a,
The revised meme schedule. That doesn't have a link.
So maybe can we just get clarity on what
Yep.
these are and whether they're seeking to do Zoom meetings for me moving forward? Because I think the big barrier is getting out there in person. Like it's not, anyone who has a job cannot participate. And a lot of commissioners have jobs. So I think that that's the big problem. And then even if the beginning of that meeting could be quick updates, people could just join for 10 minutes, get some quick updates and then depart. So I think there could be a way to make communication better. So I guess I would say, I don't think that this letter, in my opinion, doesn't really respond to what we were asking for. I mean, if the response is simply, we're not going to address your concerns, then I think we'd want to hear that. Like explicitly.
it was a little bit confusing because I did get two invitations with, some kind of like Zoom coordinates. And did you find yours?
There's just the one for the March 12th meeting. It's the only one that I see.
And what does
Has
it say?
It has the agenda and then just a link for Google Meet.
And it's for the general,
It's an invitation to me in March 12th, 10:30 a.m. to 12.
who is it from?
The secretary treasurer.
For Jane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good.
List. Trying to see who else is on it, but
I think it's probably all the general managers and then the commissioners who asked to be included. Which is their like distribution list, right? For type of thing. But we can check.
Yeah, so, I can forward this to you, Pete, but it says, there's a memo to all meme managers, commissioners and consultants and attorneys from Jane. With the revised meeting schedule for 2025. And then she says, except for the managers meeting, all meetings will be held either in person at NEPA in Littleton or by Zoom due to inclement weather starting at 10:30 a.m.
Yeah, so what she just said to me is if it's inclement weather, then it would be remote,
Oh,
not as a regular practice.
oh, okay.
'Cause I know that they didn't send up any kind of Zoom link or cameras or anything at the last meeting. So
Okay.
she said, no, when I first started, we returned.
Okay, well then it is a little bit confusing because there were two invitations that were sent out.
Yeah, I think she was talking about if it needed to be for inclement weather.
Okay.
That was
Okay,
that's what she said. I'm just texting with her now.
okay,
She didn't mean, she'll put clarifying language, but it's only meant if if the day of or a day before we have to cancel it, that would be the link we would use to be remote. It's not, if it is in person, then it's gonna be in person. So she said she'll try to clarify the language.
so then. Guess that's the answer, but why don't they have a Zoom link? I mean, even for just listening in.
I don't know if the facility is equipped for that way. I think that the preference is to do it in person and only do it on Zoom if it's due to inclement weather. Yeah. That she just said the Google link will not be active if we're meeting in person. It's only if there was a storm, so.
Just seems strange. It just seems like they have the capability if they're going to do it anyways, right?
Well, no, because nobody would be at NEPA. We would all be remote, so.
Is that a request that we want to make? I'm just throwing it out there.
I mean, I will never be able to attend a meme meeting. That's the problem.
Same.
I'm not going to take a day off of work and not get paid to drive to Littleton. So, and I would expect other people would be in the same boat. So, I mean.
But the point is that's why the general manager, you hire the general manager. So if you have, I mean, I try to provide you the current information, but that's why the general managers by bylaw of meme are the deciding body. So if the board says that they want something, then I'll bring it back to them again. But I think that the opinion is that they only plan to do remote if it's due to inclement weather and they cancel in person.
I think just kind of taking a step back, it was the commissioners being a bit blindsided and knowing that some of the stuff was moving quickly, but that there is stuff going on at the state level that is attacking local control, these regulatory things coming down that are coming out from meme to combat that. But then when to our legislators, and when then the legislators circle back around to us and as commissioners, and we don't have the knowledge that even some of the stuff is going on, it puts us in a tough position to respond appropriately. So I think that's just the high level is asking that stuff is.
Yeah, typically, again, I think that the letters went out prior to another meeting where we could have waited a little bit longer on those. That happened in a 1 week window that, we've shared with Bob and with the caucus that, but by the same token, there's other stuff going on really fast right now. Like, so there's
Well, I don't want to prolong this discussion.
it all ties into that other discussion, so.
But is it worth having Joe, inviting him to the meeting and seeing if he can come and then we can just express these things directly to him?
That's
If you don't
fine.
mind.
Yeah.
And you know,
Person or Zoom.
Zoom.
Oh,
We can do Zoom.
Fine.
We're gonna make him drive up. I will actually tell him not to come because I don't think that's fair to him.
No.
Yeah, no, that's why I was, when you were saying come to the meeting, I didn't know if that was like physically in person or.
Have to be here.
Yeah, no.
No, I
No,
mean,
that's-
just-
and-
it's-
Yeah.
An interesting way to, for retribution.
Well, when I was the president,
And
Revenge.
when I was the president of Beam 2 years ago, I had the same request from Wellesley that they demanded that I appear in person and I refused.
oh, no,
Yeah.
that
No,
wasn't what I meant.
And I wasn't
Yeah.
I wasn't
I
implying
just-
that, I was just
Yeah.
I
clarifying.
know that you'll convey the message,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's useful for us to
Mhm.
have that direct, discussion. Also, because of the way things kind of happened, not only were we not informed and couldn't, express our opinion, two of our legislators didn't sign on because of that. So like, I'm sure they don't want that to happen, right? But maybe one out of three is okay.
Well, I think if this is moving faster than our board meetings and you have a meme meeting in between, that's an opportunity, right, for people to jump on the meme meeting when they might not have a board meeting for another month.
Yeah, well. Maybe he won't change his mind, but
Mhm.
if he can join, that would be remotely, that would be great. Then the last thing, I had was the focus group that we had on January 16th for the website. So Joe, Olivia,
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about it.
do you have any key takeaways, next steps? I think it was pretty successful.
I would agree. So we had 8 participants in total, which honestly was pretty good. We got a lot of responses to the survey, but not a ton of people who wanted to actually come into the office to do it. I think a lot of the feedback, some of it was about the online accounts and the payment system. So that's stuff that obviously is a way deeper dive than a quick fix. We did, however, do a couple things already in terms of updating information. We took the home button away and made the logo the home button, which was a suggestion from the focus group. We also are in discussions now about kind of how to rework the headers and the tabs to make it more user-friendly. A big comment was that it took a long time for people to find where they were going, to try and get to a rebate page, specifically finding next zero information and other rebate incentive information. So we definitely want to make that more clear cut. So we're just kind of figuring out the best way to do that so far. But overall, I thought it was very beneficial. Everyone seemed to enjoy being able to provide their own feedback and that we actually wanted to take into account their feedback. So I think that was important too. But I don't know if Joe and Pete, you have anything else to add?
A couple of questions around that, like what were some of the demographics of the 8 folks? Were they users that came to our website all the time or just once a month to pay their bills? Like what kind of folks came up?
Yeah, so we definitely had a mix. Some people use the website all the time, and another comment was that they found it hard to use at first, but after using it for so long, they just got used to it. But then we had other people who only went on it maybe once a month to check information or look at the outage map, something like that. So I would say it was a pretty wide variety in terms of demographics, age, gender, so all of that. It was a good mix of people.
Yeah, I thought it was one of the best meetings we've had in terms of the information we got in 1 hour for a $25 bill credit was incredible, I thought. I mean, Olivia has like 10 pages of notes that we took. There were some comments around stuff that we could fix right away, which we've already done most of those, and then some stuff that we want to change more long term. So we have a meeting that we're scheduling with the current person that operates and maintain, help develop the website for us. Are these things we could do in its current format? Because if we can't, then we'll start to look at, building it differently. But they like the look and feel. They had some suggestions around like pull downs and simplifying a little bit. And there was a lot, I took a lot out of it. I don't know, Sharon was there, so I think,
Yeah, they gave a lot of constructive advice. One person was funny. He's a software developer or something, was very concerned. He's like, I don't want my bills to go up. Don't make too many changes. But the three things that I think customers were most interested in were paying their bill. So like the bill pay, outage maps and the rebates. Those are the three things. And they wanted to find those things pretty quickly.
in an easier way to show it, like simplify some things. So there was a lot, they were all in that kind of world of, and like I said, I think we got a lot out of it. We've already done a handful of things to clean up some of the stuff you could react to right away. And then, like I said, the stuff that we have to look at long term, but the information we got was very valuable.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think the facilitator we had did a great job, and right at the right level, she committed to keeping there only for an hour. And I think it did support my comment in the past that I've said that beauty's in the eye of the beholder, because they asked everyone around the table their favorite websites, and we got the first person said that they loved Amazon, and the seventh person over there said they hated Amazon. So like that in and of itself told the story that it's all in the eye of the beholder, so, and what was like somebody like Target, somebody like Kohl's, then they tried to narrow it down to like service ones, and what are the better service ones? And so those were all, so I thought we got a lot out of that discussion, but it was definitely interesting. I almost laughed when the first person said Amazon and the seventh person said no, they hated Amazon. So.
And I thought what was also interesting was, although some people use the website to pay their bills, and they went to the website, some people wanted to use the mobile app. Especially when they lose power, the few times in many years that they lose power, they wanted to look at the outage map and they weren't able to really maneuver on the phone, because the map would spill over. And so that's something that we might wanna.
So is the ask to develop an actual app or make the web page more mobile friendly?
Maybe make
I think what we wanted to, that was one of those ones that I want to have a conversation with the developer that helped build it to answer that exact question. What are the tools are there, this was 5 years ago, so are there better tools that would make it work better in its current form, or do we need to develop an app that would enable us to use it better? So those are the true questions that we have at that next level. And so I think, but hearing what the concerns were around like viewing an outage map or being able to do a rebate on your phone or all those types of things, that was great for you. So that's the stuff that we need to kind of dig into now and see what the next step should be.
Okay. Great. Any other thoughts on that?
No, just thank you for hosting that. And, I know it's been, the web page has been kind of a thing that I've talked about for the past 6-ish years, since being here. So, and it's come a long way from when I got on the board. So just the continued improvement.
Yeah, one of the things you need to figure out is like their main reasons for being there, and then how to present all the other information that's there in a way that's easy to use. You know what I mean? Because we have just so much information there, but we don't want to lose. They want to find it easier, so we got to figure out a way to present it in that way. So.
Okay, well, keep us posted.
I will definitely. We're in talks about it, so I'll let you know when anything new comes up.
Great, thank you. So we're still in opening remarks, commissioners' reports.
Yeah, the one I wanted to mention was the January 8th meeting that Dave and Mark hosted us, 7 of us from National Grid, and big thank you to you guys. It's very impressive. I think everybody was impressed as far as like what Wakefield is doing and has been able to do, and how thoughtful they've been with their thinking and strategic vision. So thank you for hosting us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Great. Anything else?
I just wanted to give a quick update on the interagency working group. So there's a near-term study and a longer-term study, and I attended this quick update basically about the near-term and long-term recommendations. The near-term recommendations for roughly the next decade through mid-2030, when we might be winter peaking, would be a seasonal heat pump rate with a lower volumetric rate in the winter. And potentially having customers self-attest if they adopted a heat pump. And I think a rate like this, I think, was adopted or approved by Unitil recently in my mind. Anyways, it was,
Oh,
Yeah, it's part of their rate case.
I think so. I think it was approved by the DPU. This would be without AMI throughout territory. So this could be done in the absence of AMI. Over the longer term, the recommendation is leaning toward adopting AMI and then being able to have more time varying rates, taking into account winter peak. So that was the kind of quick update on where they are with overarching recommendations, more specifics.
so would that require a second meter if you didn't have AMI? Or
I could not answer that question.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they went on a seasonally, we'd have to figure out how to make that work. On the EV side, we're requiring the separate meter socket, but I think it would be too much to do that on the heat pump side, so we'd have to figure out what you would do with that.
I'm not too familiar, but I think National Grid, as part of their rate case, we got a low income rate for heat pump adopters.
I heard about that actually.
So, but it doesn't require a second meter. It's just
it's a tiered.
tiered approach.
Yeah, I think it's just literally, there's a web page actually that I can send around. It's literally just like November to March, right? Like all like for any folks that say that they have a heat pump or reasonably, you could reasonably think they have a heat pump through their electricity use. They would just be on a different rate.
Is it a lower rate or is it a higher rate?
Yes, no, it's lower. So it's like a third, and it's just the, again, I can send it to you. It's just the delivery charge. So
Okay.
the supply charge would be the same. And the delivery charge would be roughly a third of what other customers would be on for those months, November 1st through April 30th.
There's no restrictions as far as the customers qualifying for like low income or anything like that, right?
That's a different.
I don't
Different
see
approach.
anything here. Like there's this, again, I'll send it to you. It's unitil.com, MA -heat-pump-rate. So it's pretty straightforward web page here that just shows how it works. So I like that it's very simple.
Go write that down. We're gonna be looking at it tomorrow.
I like the self-attest. The self-attest. There's a lot of aspects that I think are just simple
Yeah.
to implement. So yeah, I think it's interesting to think about. I will send a link after this.
We'll be interested to see how they qualify people for it, because it might be people that might have a heat pump, but might not be the primary source of heat into their
Right.
house.
So do they still qualify for it if it's not the primary source, if it's just
Or
supplemental?
not, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't read the full filing, which is obviously relatively long.
Yeah, yes.
So I haven't gone through that in great detail.
For us, I actually think that would be a fairly easier because, well, at least for our gas customers, right? You're gonna see the electricity side go up and the gas side go way down. Like I just
Well,
saw that with
Yeah.
myself.
If
You
you
might
don't have a
even-
house, yeah,
Right.
yes.
But if somebody's putting an addition and they're putting heat pumps on that addition, but they still are having the rest of the house heated from gas, there's no difference in gas usage compared to.
Well, some of those charts that we've included cover that.
I mean, they should be eligible if they received an incentive from us for a heat pump. One thing, right? So that's one way to do it. But yeah, I mean, casting back if you don't, you know, or capturing people that either didn't get an incentive or, right, would be different, would be harder. So. That's it. Quick update on that.
Great. Okay, so secretary's report.
Are there any edits to the December 12th, 2024 meeting minutes that are not?
The only ones I got originally were,
Edits that were incorporated?
Huh?
Made?
I incorporated Sharon's, those are the only ones I could.
I have one edit and a question that might in a second edit. So page 4 under chair remarks. It's the second sentence there, reads really roughly. So it says Pete noted that there were no outage and that the only a couple of tree issues. So I just think that that could be cleaned up. To Pete noted that there were no outages and that there were only a couple of tree issues. And then page 7. This is like 3/4 of the way through the big first paragraph. It said, Pete said that the goal is to receive more actionable items for building a new version of our website. And my question is, are we building a new version of our website? So this is talking about the survey and the point of the survey and the focus group. And that makes it sound like we're actually just like totally redeveloping our website. So I wasn't sure if that was what was intended here or whether it's just like to update the website.
Well, I think the goal of the focus group was to determine whether we need to redevelop our website or can we make changes to the current site? So maybe there's a better way to say it.
So maybe it's receive more actionable items and determine how to proceed. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, but I just want to clarify that. What?
Determine how to improve our website.
Yep. That would work.
Which may rebuilding it, may not.
Yep.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yep.
That's all that I have.
I just saw a couple small things. On page 8. The second paragraph, there is the word he. I'm not sure if that sentence was cut off or if you can delete that word. And then the page 9.
How I spelled Dave Polson's name wrong.
Don't want to say anything. I'll catch you later.
I already thought it.
Yeah.
The major edit.
Nice job. That's the most important edit of the night, by the way, just so you know.
Name was misspelled on one of those letters that draft letters.
So the last page 9 was seconded by Commissioner somebody. I don't know.
Mysterious commissioner.
Might have seconded. Tom might have made.
I don't remember.
I
can go with Elton. Sure.
Okay.
That was it.
Other. Nope. All right. Well, then I will make a motion to accept the December 12th, 2024 minutes as amended just now.
I'll second that.
Dave?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. We'll move on to old business. Any updates on the energy park?
Making good progress. I mean, even with the weather. So we set our first structure today. So, the ledge, still working on the ledge, small piece of it, but most of the ledge has been removed. We're starting to set the structures. So next week we'll be setting, a couple manholes. And along the way, we'll do some, transformer pads and some different, foundations. The battery vendor is, mobilizing on site, and they'll be working there next week, doing more work. So they'll actually have a crew there every day next week, doing some site work. And that's it for now. It's progressing, even with the weather. So we're still able to, get some things done. It's working well. No issues.
And our site contractor is gonna be doing some of the site contract work for the battery vendor.
Yep, our site contractor has enough resources that they'll be working our side of the site and the battery side at the same time. Yep, and our goal is to have the battery in service, for, June 1st.
I assume we're still syncing up well with the two schools with their timeline, like where.
Yes. Yep, no issues.
Okay. Other,
I think we've already covered some of the stuff we're
Yeah.
gonna talk about, in terms of the website meeting that we had, and then, some of the other major projects that are ongoing.
Do you want to say note to the gas side, the congratulations for getting rid of the cast iron? I saw that note in the book. That's a major milestone. Did we save a little piece for Brownie?
Although we are a little bit concerned now with the actions that were taken on Monday, whether we are gonna still have the rest of the money available to us. So, so right now, the second grant that we were awarded, we'll obviously be very cautious, but the first grant, we're almost done. And so we're still owed about 450 grand, Joe?
Yeah, I think it's 486 is
486.
the number.
you're talking about the executive order, on IIJA
Yeah, so,
and, the disbursement of funds.
correct. So
So,
we're gonna, Joe has a current
day,
Joe has a current bill right now that we're gonna submit and see if it goes through the process as quickly and easily as past bills.
And then I'm meeting, we have every other Thursday, we meet with our grant specialist. So I'll see if she has any insights, when we meet with her tomorrow morning too.
So yeah, they've been meeting with her over the two, now we have one grant that's active and one grant that we've been awarded that we're in the preliminary phases of.
Right.
So
do you have,
What's that? What was that award again? It was 1 point what?
the first one was 1.3, the second one was 1.4, Joe?
Yeah, exactly. Like 1.27 on the first one, and then I think 1.4, pretty close to 1.4 on the second one.
Yeah, I'm assuming. Is there any legal contractual things since we were awarded it that we can fight for if it's
I'm not
if the
sure.
feds just say no and take it back?
Again, the future grant is at least, at least we haven't expended the time, money or commitment to it. The current grant is what's concerning me because we have contractors on site. We knew we were gonna have to pay for some of it, but we were expecting to get 486 grand back, so.
I'm not a lawyer, but, just in, talking with folks, it's my understanding that if you have a signed, executed agreement with one of the federal agencies, that money has been obligated to you, and it would require some kind of legal action for them to
Stop it.
claw that back.
Well, Joe will get hopefully an update tomorrow.
But
Yeah.
if you if you receive notification that you've won an award, but you don't have a signed contract, that's a little bit, those funds haven't officially, been obligated, so there might be some concern with that. So what's the status of that
We haven't got a contract yet for that second grant, right?
second grant? Okay,
No,
so.
Yeah, we're still early in the process on that. Joe, the last time, we didn't even get the contract till after that environmental assessment?
Yep, yeah, so it's the environmental survey and then it goes in a review period for like a month or two where they have to look at it. And then you get the contract after that. They send you the award and then you have to sign it and then they sign it. Um, hopefully it's quicker
But
this
I,
time.
but I would have, I mean, I'm gonna be hopeful here because this is, energy, like basic energy infrastructure, you know, it, I'm gonna, I would think that they would just do their 90-day review period. Perhaps they need to get their new people on board, but they will, make good on that contract or that award that, it's for replacing pipe. It's not for, building a wind farm or something like
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean?
Well, are we obligating any of our funds in the next 90 days?
Yeah,
We are.
the contractors are on site.
Oh, I thought you meant for
the next pay. No, I mean, we will have internal engineering work to work with them on the environmental assessment, and that's like
Okay.
the stuff that's prior to the contract that Joe just
Right.
described. That's relatively minimal compared to the fact that on the first grant, we have.
Right, I'm more
Trouble.
concerned about the second one and
Yeah.
what monies we're spending that we may
Yeah,
or may not get back. So that was my question.
Minimal in terms of,
Okay,
current commitment.
yeah, I mean, if we
Will we
can
be doing that work anyways? I mean,
commit to doing anything major in the 90-day
Yeah,
or until we get more information.
Yeah, I mean, the earliest we would put shovels in the ground on that project would be next fall.
Yeah.
So
So that's good.
we're a long way away, and more likely, based on track record, that project probably wouldn't go out till spring of 26.
okay, that's, we have time.
Yeah.
All right, well, let us know. Keep us posted. So next, clean heat standard and decarbonization clearinghouse.
Yeah, I sent this note out today basically because I think that the crux of the discussion is the larger discussion around local control. And that's been the main issue for me, for all the managers, all the departments. And clean heat standard and decarbonization clearinghouse are just two of the list of things that are the attempts at regulation. So the real value, I think, for our board is to have a conversation around how do we focus on the larger picture, because that's where the meme action is going right now. That's where all the boards are talking about. Again, I shared letters that have been going around. So that, I think if we are going to craft a letter, it should focus at that higher level than just the clean heat standard. Local control gives us the ability to adopt the clean heat standard if we want to, and not adopt it if we don't want to. And that's the local control issue. The bigger issue is the fact that the state is attempting to attack the model. And so that's really where we want to let our legislators know that, and at least I think that's where the crux of the issue is.
So I noticed that you put another letter in the packet. I don't think everyone's had a chance to, I'm not sure if everyone's had a chance to read it, but so
I
basically,
think what I was trying to say is that I don't think I've framed the issue as, and obviously the issue has been evolving over, it's been very rapid fire over the past 2 months in terms of what when I reported out to you last month, I thought the clearinghouse was going to be kind of keep us out of the regulation. We'll work with you. Jeff Roy sent the note and they basically ignored him. And so he's the chair of the TUE and they ignored him. And so he's pretty angry right now too. So, because he thought the administration should at least report, he's the chair of a major committee, they should have at least responded to his letter. And so they just issued the regulation. And so he's pretty angry right now. But so that's why I'm talking about a lot of stuff's happening quickly. And so I think that the real issue isn't getting lost in just the clean heat standard is less important right now than the bigger issue. So, and I think that's where our legislators need to understand that local control is the issue. So,
I was hoping that we could just have a discussion and talk about what are the points that we want to raise. That are specific to Wakefield, because I think a lot of the points that you've made have already been like vocalized in many forums. So I didn't want our letter to fall on deaf ears. If there's something specific that, that makes, that unique that we can bring to the table that they haven't heard.
I do think that this board should at least make some form of a statement about the threat to local control that we view these issues as, and that our legislators are hearing, like, the criticism we got was that mass caucus letters went to our legislators without you guys talking. So I think the real issue is this board should voice their concern if on where we stand on, and I think the mistake I've made is like focusing on one of the issues rather than we should be, as a board, focusing on the bigger picture.
Yes.
And so, but if it repeats a statement, then at least our legislators know that this board feels that way too. And I don't care if it repeats. I think that Kate is saying, well, what does your board think? So the board needs to say it,
But I agree, like from, all of these things, and there could be other stuff coming down the pipe that we may not have control over. And I think I said it at the last meeting is each board member, each board, each uni has different concerns, different ways that they work. If we want to implement some sort of program, we can do that. We want to set a rate, we can do that. If we're being forced to comply with regulatory things where we're already working towards, it's, why do we exist?
Yeah, and I agree. I think to Pete's point and to your point, Tom, I think we should be focusing on protecting the operating model that we have rather than giving that up. Because it has proven to be beneficial in the long run for the customers and keeping the rate low to the point where affordability comes into question.
And I think most munis, it's reliability is leaps and bounds. Leaps and bounds.
No, I get it.
Of the investor owned utility. The rates are much better. And then the folks that vote and put us here, they put us here for a reason as their voices to reflect the town and entity that they're a part of, that we represent. So I do think that we should craft a letter as a board, protecting those local control rates.
Local control, but I think we need to spell out that what the benefit of those local controls are and how that has been beneficial over the years for the customers, right? I mean, one of the takeaways from the meeting on the 6th, after I talked to the CEO of National Grid, she said, how are they able to do it all with only 43 people in total?
Yeah, that was the takeaway.
Be like that.
That was
Very insightful.
When we look and compare it, like with National Grid, Wakefield is about 100, right?
Yeah.
You got 13,000 customers on the electric, about 8,000 on the gas side. 1.3 versus 900,000 customers on the gas side for National Grid, and we're at about almost 8,000 people versus
42.
So if we use Wakefield's ratio, it would have been 4,300 employees, or if Wakefield used National Grid's ratio, it should have been 80 employees.
I think
Simple math.
it's a testament to, again, a testament to the efficiencies, to the staff, to, the territory. We're like, we have to care about what goes on inside of Wakefield's, you know. We have more line personnel per mile of line than I think any of the investor-owned utilities, just because we're confined to Wakefield.
But I mean, Pete, I don't know if you wanted to revise this, but the larger point about protecting the operating model. And then tying that in with the benefit that that operating model has provided when it comes to reliability, efficiency, keeping the rates low. I think you hit on the other letter, still providing the incentives for all of our customers to convert over. Mention of all the
metrics.
Even include the slide that you had in here that we're touching base earlier on, right? Compare that to other munis or other IOUs in the state. I think should be able to make the point across. Yeah.
And we're, I don't want to say more nimble, but we can do things more innovatively quicker to an extent, right? Like look at the energy park, you know, use the energy park as an example of we kind of came up with that model that is now being copied by other munis, other, you know, investor-owned utilities are kind of looking at that, you know, not that a microgrid is new, a new thing. It's, we were able to take the two high schools, see an opportunity to put a microgrid in and create the energy park to support that on all fronts from a taxpayer utility.
Right. But that's a testament of the relationship that the department has with the other groups within the town, the schools and everything else, because regardless, anybody else could try to do that. If you don't have that relationship and start the discussions with the schools at the appropriate time, we might have missed the boat and we would have never been able to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. So
one of the things
that nimbleness.
Yeah.
One of the things we discussed with the state is the fact that, you know, our rates are low enough and adding costs without a requirement, like, so we already have more requirements to change than most other people. So all you would be doing by forcing some of these things on us is just adding cost, because right now, any new construction is subject to the specialized energy code and the gas moratorium. They're subject to those, you know, and so we're already there. So making us do all these other things just adds cost to the bottom line. They don't have any benefit to effectiveness. And so, and I did, like, Secretary Antos, I talked about the fact that this clean heat standard doesn't even require that a single person converts. It's all these financial things, but nothing in here mandates even one person to change if they don't want to. And so, like, so you're throwing all these costs at something and you don't guarantee a single result. You know, there's no mandatory requirement. So
one of the notes that I put down is like, while we don't agree with the clean heat standard, what would be our proposal would probably be something that maybe we should take a crack at and include it on the letter.
Well, I think we're willing to investigate like heat pump rates and, like, you know, right now, like, those are the kind of things that, but we've proven that we're willing to do that. But the fact that we have an EV time of use rate and we're going to talk about a commercial EV rate, you know, those are all the things that we can do but this board has to authorize it, but we can do that with discussion and with advocation and all that stuff. And, you know, the board tells the staff, we want to look at stuff like this, you know, and so.
And not to say that we're opposed to the clean heat standard. I think the way they're going about it is incorrect. If the state wants to move the needle, then, you know, like we talked about at the last meeting, is like the title 9 or title 5 that is in place in Mass for folks that have septic systems when they sell their home.
Yeah.
And it doesn't meet that criteria, then it's either dealt with prior to the sale or monies are put aside in an escrow to deal with it within a certain period after the sale. Like, that to me seems like a better model to, if you want to actually apply it.
I think water departments are doing that with like lead pipes now too.
Yeah.
I will say on that, some of the reports I sent did suggest that the state has looked at other options and they would not achieve the climate targets that we have.
Right.
So that would move too slowly for this. That's the clean heat standard moves faster by focusing on existing homes.
But how does it work?
Transitioning them.
How does it work faster without any requirement?
Right.
All it is financial incentives and penalties. There's no requirement.
Right, it would be people adopting it would be changing, it's based on changing the economics, right? You're changing the economics of, of the cost, right? The upfront cost, and then you're changing the economics of the ongoing operation of the equipment and the cost to heat your home.
But
Not if you increase the rate.
but you have to fund it.
Yes, you do.
So the idea is that, we made significant inroads by making it a requirement. Like, all the new developments has been significant because they've gone electric because of the requirements. So now we have, the stretch codes, specialized code, those are requirements. So, we've added on, it's only a few, but time of use metering has been a requirement by the utility for new construction to meet if they have to install a wire for a car charger, then they have to install for the time of use metering. It doesn't cost us anything to rebate them to put it in because it's part of the new construction. It's a requirement that we're making. So, I think we're making significant gains without costing us money and having to pay it. There are places in times when you need to pay it, but you should really exhaust the opportunities to do it when it doesn't impact the ratepayer, but it forces people to do it to meet the goals. And the developers want to build here. No one's pushing back on any of the things that we're doing. They're all willingly doing it, and it's making an impact. And it's making
I don't argue with that. It's just that more work needs to be done on the existing building stock than that pace is going. That's what the message is.
While I agree with that, I don't think that's the job of the gas and light departments or any IOUs.
So I think it is from a gas perspective. I think as a gas supplier, actually, there is a compliance there. I think you may be able to argue on the electric side, but I actually think on the gas side, it's a different story.
But what happens, in here, we have both gas and electric, but what if somebody else had gas and they're protecting their business?
No, lay it out for me a little bit more. What do you mean?
So we have service territory where Eversource is the gas or Berkshire Gas is the gas provider, we're the electric provider. And I know the state is forcing the gas companies to look at MPAs. So Berkshire has come to us and said, I'm not going to give you an exogenous list of MPAs to look at because you're going to be derating or consolidating my business model. I'm losing customers. I'm losing revenues.
Right, I understand that, but we're looking at WMGLD, which has both sides of the business, right? So it is a different business model here than you're right for an all gas.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree. But at the end of the day, I think if the clean heat standard was more around if we didn't have, let's say, the electric capacity available, that's when I see us paying a fine for not having that electric capacity available for customers to convert. The gas moratorium towards reducing the gas. Now, do we look at expanding the gas moratorium into all new construction, for example? That could be a next step into a way of reducing the gas usage. Then you can layer it over in different types of programs rather than a blank statement that if you don't convert X amount of customers per year, you're going to be paying a fine.
Yeah. Where does that money go?
Economical. How's that going to be incentivizing people to convert?
Well, so what you're doing, and I think the rate impact model didn't quite capture it, I did email you about this, is there's a fee on the gas customers and that fee is higher, right, than the fee on the electric side because the electrification goals on the gas side are more steep than for your electric customers, right? And so that is changing the economics. So to make it more favorable, right, to electrify, that's the model that's being explored, is a capitalistic model rather than a regulatory model.
So the board could vote on that. The board could say,
Absolutely.
do we want to move towards that? And then the majority of the board could say yes or no.
But it shouldn't be mandated by the state, and it shouldn't be, the money goes into a pot that's statewide, and it should be kept in Wakefield. It should be locally controlled.
I 100% agree with it being kept in Wakefield and used for Wakefield's customers. Yeah.
And
No.
that's not the case.
I agree.
Right.
I think there are aspects that I think could be useful for Wakefield, aspects of clean heat standard that I think could be useful to consider, and aspects that I think maybe will not be so beneficial.
But again, you have the opportunity as a board to implement something that either mirrors it or similar to it or accomplishes the goal.
Yep.
But balancing with that, the impact of the ratepayers, right?
So I think that that's the statement that we need to say, is that I think what's missing here is we understand that there are goals, right? And that we can't just opt out of them. Everyone can't opt out of them or we don't achieve the goal. But we want to have a say in how we achieve that goal, right? The best way to do it for our community. So we can commit, maybe we can commit to the goal, right? Or we can say this, okay, we understand this is the state's goal and we would like to discuss how we do this in our community. As you said, and I'm not sure that we're going to get to the proposal for this letter, right? Because
No, but yeah,
it's a bigger discussion, but
lay a few other options that could
yeah,
be.
you could say, here's some
further looked
examples,
into,
right?
right,
Of
yeah.
what we would like to consider that, that might make more sense for us.
Yeah.
Right.
Becky, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, just like, sorry, you got something in my throat. I agree that in the letter, I'm sorry, I don't know.
Want water?
No, I got coffee. Coffee's much. Thank you. Yeah, in the letter, I agree that we should say, geez, there are other ways that the state could have gone about this, such as, putting the onus on the homeowner instead of on the utility company. But I think we probably missed the boat on that one. I mean, the open comment period has been going on years now, and we're coming in at the very end. They're already getting ready to issue the proposed regulations.
Now what they said is they're getting so much pushback on this that it's slowing down.
Yeah. But I think though, so we can mention that, but I think that the proposed regulations are probably going to come out. I don't know if they'll ever be promulgated, but I think that the regulations will come out in the fall. So I think that the letter should really focus on the local control and expanding on the impact that this will have for our ratepayers, expanding on the $18 million estimate, give a little bit more background on why
Yeah.
we think that number actually means something. And then, of course, the argument that that the money that would be paid in penalties is going to go outside of Wakefield and not inside. So I think we need to bring all of these into the letter, but we really need to focus on impact and local control. Those are the two things that I think we need to focus. And you're right, I think too, Eldon, that we can add, like you guys are all saying, there are other ways that we could try to achieve the same thing through the programs that we already have in place and that we're always expanding and developing. And kind of leave it at that. I don't think we need to beat ourselves over this because, as I say, we're very late and all we need to do is send a letter and say, we think this is a stupid reason for a stupid proposal for the following reasons, local control and money. And we don't, this shouldn't take days for us to go back and forth and debate what we should put in the letter. I think once we take a new stab at it, and my suggestion is maybe we just have two of us just take a new stab at the letter. One person do it and the other person then go back and forth and then share it for additional comments from everybody else. I think it's a pretty simple exercise for us to come up with a new letter.
Yeah, I think it should be broader than just talking about the clean heat standard. I think it needs to focus on all these, the crux of the letter needs to be at that higher level on the local control thing. And I think if we focus on, it'll get lost if we focus on the minutia. Because one of the things I heard the other day was that one of the bills that was proposed is a different version of the clean heat standard that doesn't include electric companies. There's 2,400 gas,
If you get into the minutia, it will be stale and.
Yeah. So that-
I think I like there are goals that, we as a society state are trying to, take the 2050 goal. Like, we weren't mandated on how to get there. Like, we've been making decisions locally on what we're doing to get to 2050. as a board.
Yeah.
But there's a goal to get there. How we get there, that's up to us. And so I think that that's probably makes the letter very simple. And to Jack's point is we agree with the goals, or maybe we don't agree with it, depending on what the goals are. But like the state has goals that are need to be achieved by the NLPs and the IOUs collectively to achieve the net zero for the state of Mass. There's a clean heat goal. How we get to clean heat as Wakefield may be completely different how Holyoke gets there, completely different from how Unitil gets there.
Yeah.
Agree.
So,
Yeah, and I think I mean, I don't know that we need to talk about all these, but I think you're right to bring them together because they are actually all related. So looking at the clean heat standard, I discovered that for commercial buildings to actually be able to participate in the clean heat standard, they would have to have building reporting so that you can actually understand how much emissions and energy they're saving. So all these things are actually linked. Rate design is linked, as we just discussed, right? Because if you want to, again, shift the economics so people actually so you can actually get people to adopt a heat pump, that would be one way to do it, is through rates, by having a heat pump rate. So all these things, all these conversations are actually quite interconnected. So I think it makes sense to bring it together.
should we also mention other ways we can achieve the goals, net zero goals that we are either we're doing today or we're looking into?
I mean, I think maybe in the letter, we point to certain data points around, that have been presented, some of the stuff that's already been presented. Is just saying that,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for
Like I said,
example, the 2050 goal, here is the things that Wakefield has done to achieve that. These were all things done under local control. All decisions made by this board.
I do agree with Jack. I think it's going to be much easier for us to get it out the door if it's short.
yeah. That's what I mean. If we offer alternative options for the heat,
That's going to
Just
be
the clean.
so hard.
yeah, it's gonna be so much.
I don't, I agree that we don't.
Maybe just list the stuff, like I think that Sharon was saying, like, don't go into the details, but list the stuff that we have done, that we have in the pipeline that is working towards the goal. And I mean, you said we've already achieved the 2030 goal. It might be good to state that in there, that we're not just sitting around doing nothing. We're actually working towards the state goals.
And what the state said when we met with them the other day, they're really struggling to try to figure out how to get to the goal, but we've already have a path, you know what I mean? So their issues are outside of Wakefield, and they're just trying to put everybody under the same umbrella.
Yeah.
But we've already done, I think, a very good job and can continue, but I think their challenges are elsewhere.
Yeah, and I think the state is constantly concerned about affordability.
Well,
And
yeah,
you mentioned bill impacts.
yeah.
So would it be helpful, I don't know, to include any information about bill impacts?
Well, again,
About how,
if you want it to be 10 pages, or we're gonna like a high level
No.
summary.
No, not
I wouldn't, because I think,
that in 2 pages.
yes,
Yeah,
it's
that's what I mean.
not clear how you would calculate.
Yeah, I think, again,
So I think
circles
less is more.
back to the simplicity of if local control is being removed, then we no longer have the ability to impact our rates in a positive, affordable way. Like our decisions are a bunch of balancing of here's what we're working towards the goal, but we're still responsible for providing affordable energy to our customers in Wakefield. And so I think that that's, in that framework, that's where that is there's a bunch of, there's 4 things listed. There could be 5, 6, 7, 8 coming down the pipe that we don't know about. We take that information in and then we apply the things that are best for Wakefield, balancing all of those different demands and needs.
Even for low income, I mean, the low income, they try to put everybody again under the same umbrella. So the IOUs, their rates are much higher. So, we were talking the other day, I'm a municipal and my rates are lower, and compare them to what an IOU, I wouldn't be able to afford to pay my electric bill. It would put a challenge. My electric bill, because I have all resistive heat, it was $500. And if you look at how much that would be for an IOU, it might be $1,000, right? So the homeowners get to benefit, the residents get to benefit by the lower rates that you have control of. Everyone gets to benefit, even the people that are maybe of a lower income. So, but the IOUs, their rates are so high that they're trying to figure out how to get a program to support the low income. Here, your rates are already supporting them. So that's I think that's a huge benefit.
We don't have one because our low income,
too.
our current rate is
I know.
low income rate of the IOU.
My electric bill, so Vinny compared his to mine. If he got my bill, he'd be paying $1,200 a month, and I paid $586 for the month. So it would be dramatically different, and that impacts a lot of people in a negative way. My bill's excessive though.
That's why I thought perhaps
No heat pumps, Tom. I don't have any heat pumps.
heat pumps. I mean, that's often, as you know, in proposals, there's always a bill impact analysis, a customer bill impact analysis. How is this going to affect our customers? Every 3-year energy efficiency plan has a bill impact analysis because they want to know what the cost of the program will be and how, on different customer groups. So, that is a way of communicating something is expensive, something is.
Well, right, yeah, so like if the impact, and Joe, you calculated, if the impact is 18 million over 10 years, that's $2 million a year. That's about 5% of our revenue. That's a huge impact. And is that gonna go on all the customers or only a certain class of customers? In which case the bill impact could be 10%. So. And that's it's in the draft, so, we can just.
They don't know as I've been talking about the details about how we run our business and how we, how these things will impact us. And it's up to us to tell them.
We met with them. They really didn't understand. They admitted they focus on the IOUs. They focus on them. And they don't know how they don't have the in-depth knowledge about municipals as they do. And they admitted that.
Yeah. And, I listened to the webinar and the Q&A. And, there were a few questions that were about municipals, and they didn't really have answers for those questions. Like who would actually get the credit if, an IOU and a municipal shared the same territory, but
There's so many questions,
so I'm just saying that maybe it would be eye-opening to see like how much this is gonna cost us, how much of an impact it's going to have on us. But I understand the need for simplicity, but
I think we need to, again, broaden it to a higher level around this. Local control matters, rates are lower, so the results are higher. And like, if we keep it at that level and letting our elected officials know that this board is opposed to what they're trying to do, and that,
But do you see how that could be like a good talking point for our legislators, like saying, this is gonna be very expensive, this is going to,
oh yeah, and we shared that with them.
I mean, in numbers.
Yeah, and the presentation, if they have a copy of this. So they have the stats on what we've done on the heat pumps and what the cost impacts will be, and
You know what I'm saying? Um. Okay,
Yeah, I'm struggling with why we can't do this similarly to how we did the RPS, right? Which is that we had the target, but we comply, but then we're able to comply in our own way. That's essentially what we're talking about, correct? In other words, we have the 50%, 75, 100%
Right.
target, right?
Mhm.
So we would have a target. We would be able to comply with that target in the way that we see fit. So it's essentially what we're asking for is the same thing we already have in the RPS model, it's just adopted. Is that correct?
Well, I don't fully agree, because I don't think we're asking for the ownership of I think the state needs to own the heating model. We can be assisting by keeping our rates low. We shouldn't own the heating thing. I think that's what part of, now we're going down into the clean heat standard rat hole, which is, and one of the things I've tried to do with this is try to rise above that, because I am adamantly opposed to any electric utility having anything to do with the clean heat standard. I think it's counterproductive. It's ridiculous, because it makes no sense to raise electric rates as you're trying to get people to go to electric. It makes zero sense. And so that I've.
for electric suppliers.
For electric, yes.
Right.
It may make sense for gas.
Well, but again, that fee assumes you've decided that gas businesses need to go out of business. And that,
Right,
Yeah.
right. Because if anything, the electric companies should be paying to convert gas customers, not the gas companies. Because the gas customers who remain on the system are already gonna have to pay higher rates when some customers lose. But they have to pay to lose their neighbors
Customers.
so that their rates can go up.
again,
To increase.
which gets back to the bigger problem, is just leave the utilities out of this. The state needs to make laws, and they need to put on the big boy pants and make a law that says you need to do this at the point of sale or some other time. You need to do it. And let the utilities focus on serving gas effectively and safely, serving electricity effectively and safely. Stop making the utility involved at all. We just need to keep our rates low and our service high. And that, why are we being dragged into it? We're being dragged into it because Martha Grover sat right there and said, you're being dragged into it because the real estate lobby is really strong. She said those exact words. And so they don't want to take on the real estate lobby, so they're going to dictate it to the IOUs and the municipals. That was her exact words. We're not, so I don't agree that we should even be involved in the clean heat part of it at all. As a matter of fact, when it came down, I'm like, great, I don't have to worry about that. I just got to worry about being green at 50% by 30 and 40 and 50. And I need to keep my service high, be prepared for the load, and keep my costs as low as possible. And now we're being dragged into this other thing. We shouldn't be involved in it at all. Like, let them figure that. Because what we're doing is conceding the fact that the big gas business needs to go away. I don't know if I'm ready to concede that, so.
Right, well, and I agree with you, but I think that's what I'm saying. I think we're kind of maybe too far down the path to ward that off. But so we can mention those things, but then just focus on the impacts upon us and our ratepayers.
I don't think they care about the impacts. I think again, what I'm trying to advocate is that the message really needs to be that Wakefield needs to maintain local control. And the best way we can help our customers is if we keep our rates low and our service as high as possible. And then we're gonna, that's the incentive. And we can keep providing heat pump rebates, but it's more important that we provide like laws and frameworks that force action. Because right now, all this stuff we're talking about, once we get past the early adopters, I'm not confident that even if we paid for the entire heat pump, a high percentage of people would even go over. Like, I'm not confident that we're there yet, So I think that all we're doing is adding costs because there's no guarantee of any results.
And I think we're also losing sight of as a utility, electric utility, our responsibility under the 20, 30, 40, 50 goal is to get to those percentages in our portfolio.
And make sure we can serve all the load that's coming our way, you know.
Okay. So at this point, I understand, I'll just say, I understand what you're saying, what everybody's saying. I just want to make sure that the letter is, if we decide that we're gonna submit one, is focused on why this is not gonna work for us, or why we, we're gonna achieve the goals without this. You know what I mean? Like, I just, it's all the wonderful things that we're doing, they probably don't give a crap about, I mean, they want, with regard to these comments and these regulations, um.
Well,
because-
I don't know that that's true, but I think what is true is that we don't have full replacement heat pumps in our program as like a big part of what we're doing yet. And that's what this is, right? It's advocating for full replacement heat pumps. It's not something we've really ventured into very aggressively. So I think this is like would be a next step for us that we haven't really done a lot on.
Well,
Existing homes.
we have
You have the incentive.
right, the whole home incentive, and remove the system and you get the higher rebate levels. So,
Correct. But it's relatively new, correct? That
we're in our second year.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's no penalty. So. Okay, so I guess this is where we're at. We're not in a position where we want to present or an alternative or, just so I'm clear, the Clean Heat Commission, this is one of their recommendations. Is there any is there any legal, there's no legislation behind this, right? Other than
No, they're trying to make it a regulation.
right, but I'm just saying that there's no
There's no legislation.
legislation.
Right, it's regulation.
Yes.
So what we're fighting is again, gets back to local
Underline this.
control and the fact that they can't regulate us in this way.
Right. I'm just saying,
It's not true that there's no legislation, but the clean heat standard came out of that thing. What do they call that thing?
I'm just saying, is the
Oh,
state required to do this?
Clean Energy and Climate Plan was a planning document issued by the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, and they had to issue that by law. So a law was passed requiring them to come up with a planning document. So they came up with a planning document that said that the Department of Environmental Protection is required to come up with regulations to encourage and promote conversions. And yet they came up with a clean heat standard that doesn't encourage it. It actually penalizes you if you did, it punishes you instead of, it's the stick instead of the carrot, which is what they weren't supposed to do. But yeah, it does come from a law originally. But the clean heat standard is not going to be a law, it would just be a regulation. But yeah, it's not a list.
So they have to propose something.
They had to propose something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a requirement.
So I guess the point I'm making is they're going to propose something at some point. So maybe at that time.
Well, I think we should still
We-
take the higher level, which is
Yeah.
exempting us.
I'm just saying that if down the road we are required to comply, we'll have another response.
So we should be, as a board, do we want a letter around the protection of our local control? We agree with goals, but it is to each's board on how they achieve that goal that is representative of their community, and balancing all of the things that we balance as a board is kind of like high level, simple letter that we should be sending out, that kind of direction that we want to go.
Mhm. That's what I would think. And we don't have to go into, fortunately, a legal analysis as to why we don't think that this law should apply to us and this regulation would apply to us in Wakefield, because we can simply cite to the meme comments and say, for the legal arguments, we defer to memes comments dated whatever, and then just get to the point that, we want to get to without getting bogged down.
No more than a page and a half.
Well,
It's more than that.
oh,
I think people are gonna lose.
I honestly
interest
think
looking at it.
I think it's gonna be very hard to get to something that we all feel comfortable sending, but we can try and see where we go.
Mhm.
See if we can get to something. I mean, otherwise people can always send individual comments. So I'm fine with trying, and we really get to a point where it's like,
Well, that's why I was trying to get us to rise to the higher level of the local control arguments and not the specifics of a clean heat standard or a clearinghouse, or we focus on the fact that local control matters. I think you can get, I would hope that a board of light commissioners could get behind the local control argument. I don't think it should be that's why I was apologizing earlier by saying that we're going down into a rat hole on any one of these to keep it at a higher level, to provide too much detail on bill impacts of clean heat standards or EV. But the point is that the argument should be around stay out of the regulation business. Let regulation be done at the local level. It's all about local control. That's what munis have been fighting for. It's been over 100 years, and and I think that needs to be the point coming from a board. It should come from us.
You look sick.
Wants to, Jack, I like your idea of, two folks taking a stab at it.
Yeah, well, yeah, that way we can do it outside of the meetings and stuff. So I'm happy to take a stab. I don't know,
I'm happy to take a stab.
all right, why don't I draft something and send it to you? And then we go back and forth a couple times and then see what we come up with and then share it.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Like I said, I think trying to keep it at the level of the local control argument rather than the specifics of any one of these is a thing that should be able to rally around and therefore get to common ground.
And, at that goal, like think of each of these as a goal. Like people have those larger in-depth discussions around how do we achieve the clean heat standard and the impacts and all of that, the clearinghouse and all of that. We could dedicate meetings to each of these.
Did it seem in your discussions at that meeting with EEA and UER that they're concerned that we're not gonna meet, like as a state, we're not gonna meet, maybe Wakefield will, but as a state.
I think they're concerned about promulgating the clean heat standard because they're getting so much pushback on it. But I think the bigger goals are, I think they're afraid to attack them the way they need to be attacked, because all this stuff isn't gonna do anything if they don't there's still schools being built that are getting state money that
They don't want to push back on that.
They
don't want to.
There's
The joke.
have these statewide goals and they're still giving state money to schools to put gas heat in. How is that possible?
And they don't
Why are you picking on the ratepayers when you don't have the fortitude to step up and make that a law?
The reason they gave it is they didn't want to force it because they didn't want to force them to have to deal with the interconnection, and some utilities couldn't support the solar. I mean, they had excuses but they're giving them approximately 50% of the cost of the school. That's the time to force it. They recognize that solar ready doesn't mean solar ready. Things we already know, right? That they recognize it doesn't mean solar ready. They know that when the school goes to add it, it's going to be more expensive to add it later than it would have been to add it into the construction. They don't want to tackle the issue and force that. You know, and it's not about the solar as much. They want to figure out other things too, but they don't want to force the issue. Realtors was a big piece.
Yeah.
They don't want to push the point of sale that Pete brought up to them because the realtors and their lobbying. I mean, that's who they're catering to, right? They want to accomplish goals, but they don't want to deal with the hard issues on some of that stuff, which is.
So instead, they're gonna push it on the utilities that they're gonna try to regulate. I mean, the IOUs are in a different business. But to get their rate case passed, they have to comply.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what's broken right now. You want to achieve the goals, then set the goals and make, you know.
You want to tackle the new development. I said, what about the new development? How do you approach the new development? Well, they did have a good out. They said that we rely on the stretch code and the specialized code to push that stuff. So, but they don't want to make that a requirement. They should, because they're making towns required to accept the building, the cluster zoning, right? They're making them do it, but they don't want to push them to change to focus on electric heat. They want to rely on the code for that. So, which is fine. That's how.
And again, getting back to the economic model that you're arguing.
Yeah.
Their goal is to just make gas so expensive that the only alternative is electric. That's their model. The model is jack up the price of gas so high that you have to consider electric.
And then what people can't afford to convert are stuck with a high gas bill.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, that definitely needs to be addressed. That's
Yeah.
not being addressed in the clean.
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, that's another, but you know,
Then-
whatever we
yeah.
do here, you have the ability to
Right.
make it right, you know, which is the benefit of,
Right,
you know, 5 commissioners focused on common goals.
yeah. Okay. Maybe I shouldn't mention this, but I did try to have conversations with other munis. And I'm like, what are you doing about this? Are you fighting this? How are, what's going on? And it seems like they're like, we're kind of just bracing ourselves to comply and looking at our energy efficiency programs and just seeing what we can, how we can align ourselves so that we are set up for this. I'm just saying what I'm hearing.
Which communities did you talk to?
I don't want to say.
Well, was it the 5 that have the MCAN people on the boards, or is it the global? Because 32 utilities that were at the meeting voted to support the legal and legislative actions.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying like they think it's gonna happen. So they're just kind of bracing themselves.
Maybe they want it to happen.
I don't
know.
think so.
Again, was it a diverse group of boards, or was it the same 4 that are in that same boat?
I don't know. I
So
don't
if you
know.
don't want it to happen, you have to push back. If you want it to happen, you just sit back and wait.
Rowley, Wellesley, Hingham, Marblehead, were those,
No, there wasn't one of those.
okay.
Well,
Okay, so we'll draft a letter,
Okay.
and send it out. When do you think would be realistic?
Can send you a draft maybe as soon as
Week?
like the weekend
Oh,
or
okay,
something like that.
all right,
I won't take a whole week.
okay.
If you need any additional information or data, just reach out.
Yeah, what I want to do, like, when will this video be online? Because I'll go back to like listening to people's points to try to.
Tomorrow morning.
Okay. Yeah, in a few days. I'm probably going to the Cape for a few days, so I might work on it down there and send it to you on the weekend or something. like
Okay.
that.
Nice,
I don't know.
all right. Thank you for that.
I think that was a good discussion, so.
Um. Okay, new business. Commercial time of use rates.
Yeah, so when we went to the electric vehicle time use rate, it took a couple of months. So I think the whole idea of tonight was just to share the concept and some of the data and details around it, and not look for any kind of vote, but maybe some thoughts or ideas, that if there's things that you question as we can evolve this. So, one of the things that I think there's a couple of constituencies that we have to remember that we're looking at. There's the commercial customers that are looking to put in chargers at their, like the gas station, like Noria and all those, but
Workforce charging, meaning,
well, there's kind of the fleet and workplace charging, and then there's the commercial charging.
Okay.
So those are the two people that I think we're thinking about when we're talking about this. Places that have to charge multiple potential vehicles as part of their fleet, or the places that are popping up like Shaw's and other places
That are
that,
offering charging as as an amenity or as a business operation.
right.
business model.
Yeah.
Business model, yeah.
So those are the two clients I think we're talking about. So Joe kind of put this together, so.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to any questions. I can run through it just real quick before there are any questions. So the model that we're looking at, and I can share it to the screen too. I think it might even be one of the last pages in the
Yeah.
book, but I'll just put it up there so we're all looking at it. So one of the things to consider as far as, so this model looks more at a large commercial situation. So let's say 2 DC fast chargers, similar to what the Noria station did. I think they put 100 kilowatt and then a 180 in there as well. So close to the 300 kilowatts that this model is based off of. So basically, there's a couple of factors that make the commercial rate in this situation different, I think, than the residential rate. So the residential rate it's one household, it's potentially one car, maybe it's 2 cars, but it's a very closed loop as far as the situation goes. In this scenario, it's like public charging, and so the data that we were able to get from the two head of the lake chargers drives some of this model. So it's actually interesting to look since they were installed. This is actually the real breakdown of the percentage of time of use, so to speak, of those chargers using on-peak hours of, I believe it's 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. And then all the rest of the hours would be the off-peak. So 66% of the charging actually occurs off-peak at this moment, and then 34% is on-peak. But I mean, and so in looking at a model, you're pretty much, I mean, it's hard to say you could ever get the on peak down to zero if it's public charging. I mean, it's kind of you kind of live in that spot. I like to explain it as an example. It's like if for a gas station, if you're really low on gas and you need gas, you see maybe the mobile station is 350. Maybe the one that's local to you is, it's 280. But if you really need gas, you're going to grab the 350. But there is a certain number where you would say, I'd rather just be broken down on the side of the road. I mean, if it was like $15 a gallon, I think you would say, yeah, I'm gonna, go on my phone, see if I can find something else that's better than $15 a gallon. So that's kind of like the same situation, I think, for EV chargers, is I think trying to feel out what's a number that drives behavior, but that still keeps you within market of other EV chargers in the area. So, because you're never going to get down to that 0% on peak number like you would on the residential side, because the residential, like I said, is the closed loop scenario. There's not competing for that charger. It's, you can charge it overnight in most cases and things like that. So with those things in mind, this is just an example of a scenario where we keep the discount at 5 cents per kilowatt hour. I think that keeps it simple. And then this is the premium would actually be only it's a close to 9 cent increase. And kind of the way that this is modeled is based on what we might see as an impact to the peak. So the peak savings, the avoided cost we would get, it's not going to go from whatever the percentage was to zero, but let's say that this drops it by 11%. Then there's an avoided cost savings that are associated with that. And we have some historical data from when we changed the rates on the charger. I mean, the impact isn't crazy because people need to charge when they need to charge. Again, the example of the gas station, how much is too much and how much is going to change the frequency of use on the charger. Those are some of the constraints. But based on this model, I think we see there's a few different behavior situations. So if the behavior change goes from 34 to 25%, and 66 to 75, and those are the on peak and off peak respectively, you're looking at a 1 year savings for us of about $500, and then you can see the cumulative goes there. Now, will it get to the full 25%? I mean, we don't have enough data to know exactly how that's going to impact it. There's a middle scenario which says basically it's in between, so it would be whatever the middle ground is. It's not going to be 25%, but maybe it's 30%. And that shows that over 3 years we kind of break even. We make, I mean, $24 over 3 years, because that looks at the different, the loss of revenue as well as the added revenue, looking at the two different rates. And then the no behavior change shows that we end up losing a little bit of money on that. But one of the key pieces too is we're not going to be setting the charger rates. So I think customer education is a key piece of it too. We'd want them to kind of mirror, and it would behoove them as well as us for them to increase their rates during the peak times. Because they would save money and then we would save money. The customers will in turn save money as well, as long as they are abiding by that kind of rate structure. So hopefully I didn't talk too much about it. Hopefully I gave a pretty concise overview of it. But I don't know if there are any base level questions or additional things that maybe we want to consider.
No, Joe, thank you for all this, and thank you for the last part that you said about the education. That was a question that was rattling around in my head, is for the on peak to, say it's a Noria, to educate them to say, hey, your on peak rate is, X amount. Like we're modeling at the head of the lake, we have an on peak rate that's different than the off peak rate. And users of EVs do look at the rates and see that, and that would hopefully model the behavior that's looking for, and moving that time of use to that 75-25.
The other thing, I think the chances of the no behavior change model are low because they'd be opting on to this. So they wouldn't opt onto this if they didn't think they were going to have some, benefit.
So how do we, small commercial, large commercial, does that have to do with the way that they're operating their business model, where they're, operating the chargers as a business versus a fleet, where, say we have a company here that has a fleet of transit vans and trucks that they're charging for their business, they're not selling the chargers. How is the small and large broken down, or
So I think those are important to consider. So the way it's broken down here is just to show like the small commercial and the large commercial have slightly different base energy charges. So that's what it kind of shows up there. I think one thing that definitely to consider is the fleet versus the open to the public. It's definitely one that's key, because I think you could argue that there should be a separate rate, or maybe it's even the same rate that we give on the residential side. If it's a commercial that's a fleet charging, and let's say maybe there's one or two cars or what have you, one or two chargers, they have so much control over that. Like if it's a private charger that's not open to the public, that business has full control over it. And I think that that to me leads itself to that closed loop situation, like with a residential. But the customer on the residential side, because it's not open to just anybody to come in and charge, have all the control over when they're going to charge. So I think similarly on a business fleet side, depending on constraints and how many vehicles they have, you could make that same argument that we could employ potentially the same rate. I mean, we'd probably have to pass it as a separate rate because it would be not residential, but I think the framework exists already for that to be the baseline for the fleet rate because they can control it that way.
Okay, so then I guess, what is the different here? What do we classify as small commercial and large commercial? Like, well, how do we classify? What does that mean?
So
Do we already have a small?
it's based on the current rates. So it's at over 500 kilowatt hours.
Okay, so this is our
Oh,
current
500
small
kW,
and
yeah.
large.
Yeah, that
Okay.
it's based off of our current.
So it has
small,
nothing to
yeah.
do with what they're doing with an EV. It's our current.
Right.
Small and commercial. Okay, thank you. That was.
And these are the current rates, the 0956, 0928.
Yep, those are the current.
Joe, how does this compare to the residential time of use rate?
It's on the discount side, it's the same,
Okay.
but on the premium side, it's the premium is a lot less. It's a lot less. Like it's about you pay around a little under 50 cents, I think, on the residential side, whereas this is adding, or it adds about 40 cents on the residential side, whereas this adds around 9 cents.
9 cents.
I think and the reason for that is because of that behavior, the behavior impact is the behavior is not going to go to zero. So
Yeah.
that's where like we would collect if we jacked it up a huge amount, it would do a couple of things probably. We'd collect a ton of revenue probably. And then also, I mean, those stations that people wouldn't want to opt onto this rate because they would have to charge maybe $1 in
Right.
some cases probably to make it make sense.
And
I'm sorry.
no, but
Joe, is this designed to be revenue neutral in the end compared to current rates?
Basically, yeah, that's where it's like it's supposed to be pretty revenue neutral. I mean, we're not looking to collect more. And if there is no behavior change, we actually lose a little bit. So I think I mean, it might land in the moderate change, and that's where I think the impact would actually be basically zero.
And
Yeah.
these numbers that you're given, so like at the end of the no behavior change, at the end of 3 years, it's $2,800, or is that in thousands or something else?
No, that would be $2,800 just flat on that. And that's for the scenario where I used some of the data we already have, both from the head of the lake chargers as far as what they used over the course of a year, and then the Noria stations, couple of chargers. I don't think they've been in for quite a year yet, but the way they're projecting out, it's kind of based on those two things.
So, but this is based on a per charger level. It's not on across the board. We have 80 people join on to it, right? This is on a per customer.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
One site.
Yeah.
It's
service.
a
Yeah.
per customer
Yeah.
look at it.
I think that's what Jack was getting in terms of, yeah, this is, so for a single account with no behavior change, we would lose a little money. If there was full behavior change, we would make a little money. The reality is going to be in the middle and it's going to be basically revenue neutral.
Yeah, and I mean, and our making money on the full behavior change it actually wouldn't be like, it wouldn't be dollars that we're collecting. It would show up, we're losing revenue, but it's the avoided cost, the capacity and the monthly transmission peaks where we would it's like an avoided cost savings. It's not a cash in the door saving.
Rate benefit to all ratepayers, right? Basically.
Right, because we're
Yes.
reducing our capacity.
Ratepayers, yes.
Joe, have you done any benchmarking with any other munis or IOUs that have
So I don't know other munis that have a commercial time of use rate for EVs. I'm not sure on the IOU side. I'd have to look a little bit further. I know they have some. I've seen some language about rates and things like that, but it's something that I can definitely look a little further into.
You said something earlier that confused me. You said we are not setting charger rates. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so for instance, the Noria station, we don't own those chargers. So let's say they hop on this time of use rate and we can't tell them you need to charge your customers that charge their vehicles a
They
dollar
set their own
or
rates.
70. We don't
But this
set
is
it.
what we would charge them.
And-
Yeah.
And then
Yes.
they can recoup from their customers,
however they want.
however,
Yeah.
whatever model
Yeah.
they want.
Right.
Okay,
Their-
I
Their
follow.
peak hours could be different than ours, right? In
Yeah.
order to like level off the.
Or they might want to
charges.
give their employees a benefit.
Right.
So they might not charge them up,
However
whatever
they want to
wanna
run
do.
it on the other side.
Okay, I understand.
So like Nora, I was just looking at Noria, they're charging 40 cents a kWh. And then, which makes sense. They go very punitive if you are sitting on the charger and not charging, they go to $10 an hour. Which is $10 an hour is reasonable for not charging. I've seen as high as $100 an hour.
I was gonna say 10 sounds really low.
Yeah.
10 is nothing.
Wow.
Because they don't want you to sit
They're losing
if they
control.
try to use it.
Yeah.
So that's the anti-idling. Yeah, so like the Mass Pike is $100 an hour if you, if
You're sitting there.
if you're
If you're
done
idle,
if
yeah.
you're done charging and you're idling.
Yeah.
Because they want
They
that
want that
turnover.
revenue.
No, there's not a revenue that they want to make the charger, you're done.
Yeah.
They want to make the charger
Available to the
useful for the next
Oh.
Car coming
next
through.
car coming through. So they want that turnover. So
So I have a couple of, I have thoughts, Pete. Before we would, let's say, vote on this kind of thing and approve it, and then have to, I mean, in principle, and then go have a public hearing. Have you already approached some of these potential customers and asked them about whether they would want a time of use rate or not? And if the time of use rates that Joe's designed are revenue neutral, we wouldn't have to do a 9-cent adder. It could be a 6-cent adder. So like, I mean, I would think that you would want to get some sort of feedback from customers before we get to the point where we're actually ready to roll it out and have a public hearing, so to speak.
I think we can seek feedback from the places that are already putting public charges in if they would want to. But again, we have to make sure that the penalty is punitive enough to change behavior.
I'm an advocate of, I mean, all the new installations are set up for time of use metering,
Okay.
all the new installations. So, as time progresses, some of those installations they go live. We don't have a rate, so they just go on the regular commercial rate. So, but there's a lot of developments that are putting in, time of use meters that will be available. So when this is approved, my thought is that we should automatically put them on the time of use rate when they go on. And then we need to educate them on how the time of use works.
Mhm.
So they start to set their system up, get them while it's new, get them while they go online. And that's the intent. I mean, unfortunately, we have a very small number of commercial customers that have put the time of use meter installation's been in, and we don't have the rate. It's like the Noria one is one that we have, but we have a lot of others that we still haven't lost the opportunity to push them into the time of use, not ask them.
I'm just curious if some of them are doing their own time of use rates, even though we're not charging them on that basis.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good example. The Noria is doing it right now, right?
well, yeah, they're
Well,
they're
our
not
own
doing it
time.
by you.
Oh,
They're doing a flat 40 cents.
Oh, it's not, it's a
They're doing
flat
an
rate
idle.
all the time. It's not a,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I misunderstood.
Because again, they're indifferent to
Yeah,
these rates right now.
Correct.
Because we're not charging them anymore at a peak.
Right, so they're making a lot of money on,
On the peak, They're costing us a lot of money on the peak time.
Because they're not charging us, so people
Yeah.
could be charging more on the peak, like their price
It's
should
flat.
maybe be a little bit higher.
Yeah,
So
like
that's why Dave's saying we should make it mandatory because we need to change.
our head of the lake
Yeah.
has a peak and an off-peak
Yeah.
rate. So if you plug in between 4 and 9, right?
5 cents.
It's
Yeah.
55 cents.
Yeah.
And if you plug in off-peak, it's 40
Yeah.
cents.
And I think that's too low.
Yeah, and if you start to, and the market is changing, like if you look at just down the road, the Honda dealership put in the same exact chargers that we have under the same, I think it was the same grant. They are charging, their rates right now is, sorry, opening up, is they're doing flat 52 cents kWh plus $5 an hour. So, our fast chargers at the head of the lake are, a very good bargain for folks.
Okay, so let me make sure I
I
understand.
think I just heard, Dave, that we.
Yeah, well, you know what, Pete, I'm gonna go on the record with saying, I'll work with Joe, we'll look at the rate again and we'll change it this week.
Good.
Okay.
Because I still think our on-peak is.
Crank it up a little bit, just because we are tremendously high use there. And potentially, we're, on peak, we wanna reduce the amount of on-peak charging, so we would, effectively
Or at
change.
least to cover more costs.
Right, raw cost, yeah, exactly, but yeah, deter people a little, but you put it to a real price, yeah.
Be
Yeah,
interesting
then
to
we
see
can
the
do
behavior.
comparisons.
Yeah, right,
between
yeah, yeah.
last year and, last year and this year at the same months to say, okay, is there any difference? Like if we go up by 5 cents or 10 more cents, like what is the impact? Is there something like, is there actually a trend, or is it still kind of going?
I wonder-
usage?
Along those lines, I wonder if there is like a rule of thumb in terms of the differential between on-peak, off-peak that, drives behavior.
Yeah, that's where I think it is tough. Maybe there is, but I think because I feel like it's still so new.
It's gonna be locational dependent.
I was gonna say it very much depends on
Yeah.
the site. Like if you're at a workplace, it would be very different than if you're on the side of a highway.
Exactly.
Right? In terms of what your
Yeah.
options are.
Like
Yeah.
even within Wakefield, right? The head of the lake
Yes.
behave different because you have people that get off the
Yes.
highway to charge to continue on their commute.
I would think you might put this into effect, and then once you actually get a workplace customer, you might want to like refine this, because this site
Exactly.
is
Exactly.
is a different site.
Right,
Like,
exactly. You
so
wanna
you may
change the
wanna-
rate based on what's going on.
Right.
You wanna have, we want flexibility, and then we wanna help them and guide them to have to implement a rate that works for them as well.
And it's also you talk to folks about time of use, there is a very small percentage of the population who even know what a time of use
Okay.
rate is and understand what it is. And then, you potentially have a larger percentage of that small percent in those that drive EVs, they look at rates because that's your fueling costs.
I think they don't understand the time of use, but they understand the peak and on peak and off peak. They all understand on peak and off peak. So it's a language. Time of use, very confusing, because everybody that has it, a municipal, I'll just say for municipals, if they offer the rate, they offer like they offer a discount if you don't charge during peak times, right? So they're used to the language, peak and off peak. They're not used to time of use. So if we focus more on, this is a time of use meter, but it's really about peak and off peak, right? That's what it's about.
I think if we design a rate and we use proper wording to give us a little bit of flexibility to change the premium number as we do it, so that it can be done by a vote of the board to change, like we did with the ECC when we modified the energy conservation charge. The board we don't have to go to a new rate hearing every time. The board can set it, on a regular.
Do we do the same thing for the residential where the board can set the peak and on peak?
I don't think we did. I don't think we have
The
enough.
flexibility on.
I think we probably want to have more flexibility with
Yeah, we have, on the residential one, we have flexibility.
We did where,
Revenue
Yeah, I think-
neutral about it.
yeah.
You're going to
I think-
need
Joe, do you know on the
Back it
warrant,
up
do we
doing
have
that.
flexibility to tweak that rate without having, we just like submitting a whole new rate?
I'd have to I can open up the rate. I think it's on the website and I can take a peek.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we'll look at the warrants, yeah,
So
make sure.
would a customer like the head of the lake apartment development, like I'm assuming the garage is gonna have its own service?
Yeah, and so that, no, the garage is going to be fed off of from the other buildings. There's each building on either side of the garage.
Yeah.
Will feed that building, and then one of those feeds is going into the garage. And then there's charges they gave us what the load is on the charges.
Okay.
Going to be tied to the transformer. Yeah.
They were required to have so many.
They have pre-wired.
So
They'll be pre-wired to have time of use metering on all a second, an EV meter.
An EV
An
meter,
EV meter on all of their EV
and they'll
chargers.
fall under the commercial
Yeah,
QOU, okay.
So,
it'll all be,
So
it'll all
it's
be
a garage,
commercial.
yeah.
Yep.
if we adopt something like this, that garage, in Dave's world, that garage would go on time of use.
Yeah,
With the commercial EV time of use.
yes, all the charges up there, because it's not just the garage, it's all the buildings, all the charges, will be on an EV meter.
Yep.
And then we can set the rate on that EV meter and deter people from charging during peak times. And then we educate them, right, because we have a good relationship with them. So we educate them on what that means and how they should manage it. And it's their responsibility to do that.
That we give them suggestions on how they should set their rates for the chargers.
And I really think that, they do know. It's confusing. They have, managing it as ongoing might be a challenge, but I think when they go to implement it, they should be okay. Because they're buying it from someone who will help them through that.
Yeah.
And that's
What brand? I mean,
Joe, what brand were they looking at? Do you remember? They have they have a lot of developments, so they buy the same type for all their developments. Do you remember the head of the lake, what brand they're using? No.
No, I don't remember what brand they were using. I know it wasn't
I'm sure they'll
charge point,
also.
Oh, yeah. No, they have a relationship with a vendor, so.
but was it ever, it might have been ever charge?
I forget.
I'd have to double check, but I think that's rings in my head as familiar, but
So I keep hearing that in 2025, some vehicles will have sell back to grid capabilities.
P2G.
Have we considered whether to do anything with that in the residential or commercial time of use space, or will we be?
As far as I know right now, we have not, right? I mean, I don't know, there's a safety.
yeah, I think it's still a little bit premature.
It falls under the same concept as a backup
Yeah.
generator. Just so you know, my vehicle has that. That vehicle can put out 40 amps. And it has an adapter. So if you wanted to tie it to the house, you put the transfer switch in. So it all falls under the transfer switch.
Yes.
It's no different than
A small generator.
small generator.
Wiring code requirements.
Yeah.
But I
What?
mean, isn't there Vita Home and then there's Vita
Yeah.
G?
Two different.
There's two different.
Well, sorry, yeah,
Right? Yeah.
The communication bus is there for if I was to put in some ESVE that the utility can control to go back to the grid to say, signal the car, hey, we're under peak, push that out.
So it is V2G.
It has it has the capability. What I haven't seen in the market too much is the actual charger
That can.
that and
Yeah.
take the communication from the grid to then signal the vehicle to discharge. Right now, most people are using it as a backup.
We do, I think, with the rollout of our AMI program.
Yeah.
And using this sensor is gonna be able to do that, but we talk, like, in those cases, you're talking about a more quote unquote demand response type of program where you sending a signal for people to start discharging their battery, and there's all sorts of programs out there that can do it. You can say discharge it down to like 50% of the capacity of the battery, so at least it gives you some power to move and go where you need to go. But in places where I've seen this done, it's like a third party aggregator that comes in and plays in that space. It's not run from the utilities.
I do see there's some in challenges with some, like the way that we're putting our residential time of use EV. If I wanted to do a V to house, I wouldn't be able to do that because that meter is separate and doesn't feed into my main panel. So that would be different. V to G would work, right? Because that's the demand response to the grid. So they're just considerations that,
So should we consider the meters that we put in being the the bidirectional meters?
Yeah.
So when we put the meter in there, we should make it the bidirectional, so it's capable of.
They are bidirectional though.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
they're just, stuff to kind of.
I think they are the bidirectional meter, but I can double check, but I think
Oh, have we put any in yet?
yeah, I have to check. To see.
Oh, on the residential side, we've
The residential.
done like 6 or something, right? Yeah, so,
Have to check.
yeah, I mean, because that, from our perspective, it's being able to measure what's going back. And so that's why you need that other register, so.
Yeah,
Yeah, it'd be like the solar, it's essentially the solar.
It's exactly the sole thing. It's a net meter, basically.
yeah.
So do we need to market this? I mean,
I think we need to settle on a structure and improve the rate and then market it. Yeah.
So just so you know, we actually require it, require them to prep for all new construction right now. So all commercial, like multifamily that we have, if they meet the, large development, we've been requiring them to put a meter in for EVs.
Oh, yeah.
So all we need is, once we have the rate, then we'll just implement the rate. We're trying to catch them at the right time, so we're not trying to talk to them and convince them, because it's after the fact, we don't want to change it, so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Do you find that they,
everything's been,
They-
fine. They all
wanna-
embrace it.
they want it?
They're
Or are
fine.
they,
That-
are they kind of like, it's another cost I don't want to pay for?
They haven't pushed back on what we've been requiring. I mean, they would do set their program, their charges to recover it, to balance it. That's like another conversation. I'm sure they'll be fine, but I've told some what's happening and they haven't pushed back. Like I've told the head of the lake that we're going to a time of use, so we want to set them up so that we can, manage the peak charging, deter that. And they were fine with it. They didn't say no. I think they have other issues though. This is just a little piece of what they do. So they're not really focused on it, but we haven't had a lot of pushback yet.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
so far.
Do we need to consider a third rate, the fleet rate for that scenario of the fleet of vehicles being, even if it matches the residential rate that we already have?
Joe, you want to, what do you think about the pros of having a different rate for fleets versus commercial?
I think we should.
Okay.
I think because it lends itself more towards a residential type, where it's like a closed, you can the company or the customer can fully control when people are charging, I think, whereas the public, you don't know, even if you set a rate that's higher.
The reason we don't do it now is because the EV charger rate that we have is very specific for residential EV charging.
Well, that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
We should be considering, if we're making a change to, a commercial, small and large EV rate, that we should, have a fleet rate for the businesses that, are looking to do fleet charging, since we're looking at this and making changes.
Oh, so fleet is they own all of the.
Yeah, so
Why
fleet,
would
like,
why wouldn't the rate be different?
Well, the point that I think Tom's making is that
Peak is gonna mirror our.
They have more control if.
they have more control.
Yeah, but I,
So, for example, like the head of the lake with these apartments,
yeah,
they don't have any, like, if you come home at 4 o'clock and you come home at 5 and you come home at 6, they need to have a time.
the rate that we offer,
Penalty would be so great to them that they'd have
It would
to
be
charge
expensive.
so much to charge a vehicle.
Yeah.
That Joe's recommendation is not to really significantly penalize them because they're trying to get home. Like they're trying to charge, they may charge, but to charge at like the head of the lake would just be so expensive if we used the residential model for that.
Yeah.
So he's trying to find a balance that would change behavior, but wouldn't financially impact them as great as the residential rate would.
But why wouldn't we have a commercial vehicle rate for the fleet?
We
Yeah, that's
could,
what-
we
That's
could,
But you're
adding a
saying-
third,
Yeah.
a third
Yeah.
one here.
yeah, yeah,
Commercial,
right, we could.
commercial
Right.
fleet rate,
We
Which
could,
which mirrors the residential because, again, they have more control over it.
Yeah.
Because they could program it, you know.
and
they would
by
not
having,
charge, so there's a big penalty, a hefty penalty, but they have the ability to completely control what they charge.
Versus people just randomly plugging in.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, we could just mirror to start potentially mirror the residential, but having it as a separate commercial fleet
Right.
gives us the ability to adjust that if we,
Mhm.
needs to be adjusted.
But aren't these on off-peak commercial rates based on our costs?
Mhm.
So why wouldn't we?
Well, but Joe's trying to massage the middle in terms of adoption of like, that's why he's talking about the adopting like, in the case that he's outlining here, we can't control, you can't just shut it down from 4 to 9. You have to keep it up and running. But the price signal is to encourage a different behavior versus in a fleet where it's like your house, you can control when you charge, so.
And so the rate savings versus the adder are a lot less in the commercial versus residential, or what we would propose in the fleet one.
Yeah, so if it's the residential,
40 cents adder.
yeah, it's a 40
40
cent,
cents?
yeah.
Yeah, compared to 9.
So where if non-EV is 0.9 and then 0.45.
So Joe, you would have to
0.09.
create one for fleet charge.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess the crux of it is like looking at
And use the same
Right.
thing.
the breakdown of off peak versus on peak. For a public charger, you're not going to get the on peak down to 0. For a residential situation, basically everyone who signed up for the rate, they do no charging on peak. They schedule it overnight. So there's a huge opportunity on the fleet side, I think, because you could do a similar thing on the fleet side. If you're a business owner and you have let's say two vehicles in your fleet and you have a couple of chargers, you could do the same thing. If the penalty is really high, you're gonna say, hey, everybody, you can't, we don't charge during these times. We're gonna just charge overnight. And because we could do that in our own, in the WMGLD facility, we have some chargers, and that's the situation where we could dictate we could dictate when we can charge and when we can't. And that,
I didn't let
they
Dave
have
plug
that-
in tonight after 5 o'clock.
So Karen, my chart, even though I don't.
You never
I'm
have
not using the
complete
time of
control.
use rate, I the peak
What do
on
you think
peak,
you do?
just being a good steward. My EV charger is programmed to not charge between 4 and 9 PM. So if I come home at 4:01, I plug the
Yeah.
vehicle in, the charger does nothing until 9 PM. At
Understood.
9 PM at
I just,
So could we, sorry to cut you off, I was just going to ask if we could we just change the wording on the residential one to say residential
I don't know,
charging?
we'll come back to them next month with that. I think we hear that, so the goal was not to set a rate tonight. The goal was to have this discussion, so I think hearing that, we can come back, whether we need to modify the existing rate to include that or have a separate one,
I
we can.
think we want to have at least in my opinion, have a separate fleet rate.
Yeah.
Because we could change, it may not necessarily match what we want to do on the residential.
Yeah.
There may be reasons why the fleet rate is higher or lower than residential, or same inversely, we may want to tweak the residential and leave the fleet.
So we'll come back with something on that next month.
Yeah, and we can reach out, maybe we reach out to other MLPs who have, we have our own experiences. Like, do we have enough chargers that it would be feasible to push all charging away from that 3 to 9 period of time, 4 to 9 period of time. So maybe that's something to look at, because if it is feasible, then it should mirror the residential. But like Pete said, we can come back with a couple of things. We'll look at it this month and then come back next month with some more solid stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd appreciate another month to think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, the residential rate took us like 5 months. So, I mean,
I think we'll be quicker this time, but still,
but still, like,
one more meeting.
yeah, I want to we wanted to get the concept out there.
Yeah.
So,
This is a good, thank you. This is a good first pass. Clearly we're learning.
Then the other thing I wanted to talk about tonight was, but the contract is up this year, so we want to go into collect. But also, stated in public meeting, typically next month we do the review results for the year. And so we'll do that. Typically, you guys create a subcommittee that starts to help establish the goals for next year at the same time reviewing the results from this year. I don't know if you want to establish that subcommittee again, or just wait till next month and cover it, or in the past, that the subcommittee has been effective.
Any thoughts?
I think we should establish it and get the process going.
Yes, I was just.
Here,
Yeah.
yeah, why wait? And also, this is a time of year when people tend to have a little more time, free time, so why not?
What are you talking for?
Just saying,
Yeah, you just started a new job, so
It's like everybody, thanks, on average.
Do we have to vote on that right now, or?
Well, you guys usually just gotta pick two
Yeah.
people and then, we meet and go over goals for next year.
Oh, that's right.
We
That's right.
share the results from this year and then go over
Yes.
goals for next year.
Here it was myself and Jack.
That sounds right.
I guess so. Thing is, just all blur together after a while.
Yeah, I know.
Somebody like to volunteer.
I'm not gonna volunteer because
Okay.
statement of having time.
Does not apply to you.
Not applied to me at the moment.
I could do it. I have no problem doing it. I don't know if anyone else wants to, or
I'd like to.
I mean, I could be involved. I don't want you guys taking all the work. You have the other thing going on, the other letter writing too, so. But, yeah.
okay.
Should
Are
we
you
take it?
interested?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so, yeah. So me and you will take this then.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay, I'll send out the form for the goals for this year. Staff will be working on filling in the results from 24, but you'll have the document to at least start to work on what the goals want to be for 25.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, great.
And then for the next piece, which is the contracts up this year, we need to go on executive session.
Is that tonight or?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, yeah, we need to get started. In
I know we've typically put, is it one commissioner or two commissioners on?
We've had one that's been involved, yeah, that's been there.
Right.
It's not a requirement, but it's typically in the past, it's been, like Jack's done it a couple times at least, in terms of participating in the discussions or being updated on where we stand, but.
Are you going into?
Are you ready for a motion?
Yes.
Or is there anything else?
I think that's it, right?
Yeah, because we'll come out and.
For the purpose of adjourning, yeah.
Okay, so
Okay,
entertain a motion to go into executive session.
yeah, I'll make a motion that we exit the public session of the meeting. We go into executive session to discuss collective bargaining, then to come out of executive session for purposes solely of adjournment.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording.
Good night, guys.
Thank you
Good night.
so much.
Say-
Thanks.